Hello guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new here. Hi, my name is Anna and this is my second channel. I do have my main channel, which is It's Anna Louise. You should go subscribe to me there if you're not already. But today, if you're seeing me here on this channel, then you know that it probably means that it is time for another true crime video. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about another one of the most known notorious serial killers, Ted Bundy. Back in my recent video, I did talk about Jeffrey Dahmer, who is another very notorious famous serial killer, and I briefly mentioned Ted Bundy in it as well, and I got requests to do a video on the other serial killers that I mentioned in that video, which one of them was Ted Bundy, which is my second favorite serial killer. And once again, when I say things like that, it does not mean that I condone anything that they ever did. It just means that I do find them the most interesting to study and kind of learn about. So yeah, that's what I mean when I say that. And now with this, you are going to find that Ted Bundy was quite different from Jeffrey Dahmer in their styles of killing and just kind of what they did. You can tell that they very much differed. So I'm really excited to get into this and to let you guys know all about this serial killer, and let's just go ahead and jump right into the video. Alright, so Theodore Bundy was born on November 24th of 1946. He was born into what people would mostly say is a white-collared American family. Like, if you think about going back and looking at commercials of people and their lives in the 50s growing up, then that's what Ted Bundy at different points claimed that his childhood was like. Now we are going to get a little bit more into how it really wasn't like that, and that kind of motivated him for some things, but we'll get to that in a few. But anyway, he was born November 24th, 1946, and as a child, basically, as you know, young boys are pretty adventurous. They like to go and explore and do all that kind of stuff, and Ted Bundy kind of liked to do that kind of stuff too. And there would be times where he would roam around his neighborhood growing up and, you know, just kind of going through people's stuff, like trash that they had put out like behind their house or on the side of the road, kind of stuff like that, and would just do that a lot at night. And also, one thing to mention is, in this time of growing up in the 50s and early 60s and stuff like that, graphic, more adult like content was not mainstream, it was not accepted, it was not widely known. So basically, Ted kind of found it interesting that when he would go and explore the people's trash and stuff in the neighborhood, that he would find like comic books that were of adult, mature nature. He would find them like that, and also ones that were very graphically gruesome with crime. And honestly, at this time, Hugh Hefner honestly had just gotten his start with the mansion and stuff, and that was really kind of the start of all of that. Like, nothing in that realm of, I guess you could say, media was even popular yet. So these things really fascinated Ted, and he would kind of become obsessed, to be honest. Honestly, yes, he was very obsessed. He just would collect these things, read them, and fantasize about them all the time. And the violent stuff, you know, we all know this, and this has been a struggle for years in the media and just all that kind of stuff, that women are always portrayed a certain way, and they are always like dressed scattedly and stuff like that for media and for products to sell. And that's kind of how it was with these magazines, comics, and all that kind of stuff. And so it was always a woman pretty much scattedly dressed in some type of apparel, and it just really fascinated him. And that is really kind of what stuck in his mind to begin with everything. It stuck with him, and that with some other things started to really make him curious and start to give him very bad thoughts. So like I said at the beginning, Ted did say that he grew up in a perfect household with loving parents and stuff like that in a later interview in his life. I believe it may have even been from his last interview. But the truth is, he really did not. There were so many things when he was little that he would even tell to friends that would like literally bother him so bad. And the main thing was that he was born an illegitimate child, which basically means he was born without his parents being married. And back in that day, that was so like not known hardly at all like it is in this day and time. So it just really bothered him, and I think he had a lot of resentment towards his mother for this, and it was something that really just got down to him, and the anger would build up, and there would be so many situations in his life where that thought of being illegitimate would come to his mind and really bother him and get to him in certain situations. So already as a young child, you have two things that are going against him, which is him being illegitimate and then all of these really inappropriate books and magazines and comics that he's finding that people have thrown out at night. So as he grew up, you would be able to look at him and think that nothing was going on in his brain and that he was a popular, like, well-to-do guy. He went through school, even through university, and the one thing that really got to people and made it even harder for people to know that he was this crazy serial killer is that he had really good looks. According to all the young women, they would swoon over him and they thought he was just absolutely, you know, popular and good looking and stuff like that. And whew, if only they knew, right? Because that was totally not a good thing. So fast forward a little bit to when he started to kill. In one of his interviews, he would say that when he very first started, he would feel remorse. He felt guilt at first and stuff like that, but then the want to do it again occurred even more. And so that kind of happened at first. Like I was surprised to even know that he had felt guilt and kind of like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have done that. But then the want to do it again became, like I said, even more strong. And the first girl that he did kill, he basically just started out stalking her, and it was one of those things where he would like follow her home, she would notice him, he would run away. Well, then the next time he would follow her all the way to the house, not be seen, she would be in her house, and then all of a sudden he would run away and get scared. So it went on for a while where he just kind of got scared and didn't do anything. But then he finally did, and the remorse happened, but obviously we know that it didn't stop. So in his whole entire time of killing, which was between the 70s and the 80s before his execution, he was said to have killed 30 plus women, but even as he was walking to the electric chair himself, he did admit to more murders. So there's really no telling how much he truly did do, but it is at least said to be 30 plus people. And one really important and pretty crazy thing to note is that, of course, he did kill all women, which is to where like Jeffrey Dahmer was men, Ted was women, and he kind of had this running phase for a while with the women that he would kill. He did have this girlfriend that he really loved and really liked a while ago, and she broke up with him, and he obviously just did not like that. And her appearance was dark hair, longer with bangs, and so it was kind of a thing for him to go with women like that. And one really crazy story, which I love watching documentaries and stuff like this, is of survivors that actually escaped serial killers, and there are a few out there that did escape Ted Bundy. So one was a story of a girl who was in college, and now Ted Bundy would prey against college girls because he looked like that frat guy kind of, you know, demeanor about him. Like I said, that was popular and good looking to ladies. So he would prey around girls at college, and this one girl was at a bus stop and really needed to get back to her house, and the bus was like nowhere in sight. So Ted actually pulls up, and now of course she doesn't know who he is, in his little yellow Volkswagen Beetle, and offers her a ride. And of course, back in those days, once again, things were a little bit different. It was, although not safe, it was a lot more safe than it is today, than, you know, to accept things from strangers. So she got in, and he was like, yeah, I'm literally going to the same place you are. So she was like, okay, cool, and got in his car. And the very first thing that she noticed was that on her passenger side, there was not a door handle. Now, that is really creepy, but she kind of just brushed it off and thought, oh, well, you know, it could have fell off. He's a college kid too, so like maybe he didn't want to pay to have it redone. Like, it's probably nothing. And so they were driving, and once they got close to the location that they were supposed to be going to, he didn't go there. So the girl asked, like, hello, what are you doing? And he said, oh, well, I have to just stop by the zoo really fast. I have to do something, like, it's okay. Do you not mind? So she was like, no, you know, fine, whatever. So they go past the zoo, and then she's kind of getting worried because he starts to go up like a mountain, like a mountainous area, and kind of parks. And she said that she thought that maybe he was gonna ask her to like make out, and she was just not that type of girl. And then she was like, well, how do I tell him no without like hurting his, you know, ego and making me feel weird? So she didn't know what to do. And then he got really close to her, and she thought he was going to kiss her, but instead he whispered into her ears, I am going to kill you. Now at first she thought, oh my gosh, this guy has a really weird sense of humor, what the heck? But then that thought went away in like a snap of a finger, a blink of an eye, and he had his hands around her neck, choking her. So she went in and out of conscious for quite a while, and she said that he seemed to enjoy that. He seemed to enjoy seeing her being knocked out cold and then coming back to try to struggle to get away. And so basically she got to a point where she just gave up, and she was like, okay, I'm gonna die, I accept it. It's whatever at this point. This has gone on for like an hour, and at this point they were actually out of his Volkswagen and near a picnic table, because like I said, this is like on a mountainous, like kind of park, woody area. And he turned his back for a split second. She never said why, so that's unknown, but he turned his back for a split second and she was able to escape. Now she was running really fast through the woods and actually tripped and fell into a rushing, like a river, like a brook with the water, you know, that flows. I don't know why I can't think of it, but it actually carried her down into freedom. She was able to be whipped away out of that water and saved, because when I first heard that I thought, oh my gosh, I would drown. But she was able to be saved that way, and later on she would learn to find out that her assailant was Ted Bundy. So like I said, Ted would go and kill woman after woman, kind of the same physique, stuff like that. But there was this one situation. Now this is so interesting. This is from another survivor. He had picked her up, and I believe it was kind of the same scenario, around like a bus stop kind of thing. He offered her a ride. She got in and she was wearing a hat. So the conversation didn't go so well. She also noticed there was no door handle. And basically when he lost his niceness that lured her into the car, he yelled at her and told her to take off her hat. So when she did this, she revealed that she had had short hair. Now this girl did have all the other things that he was looking for in a woman to kill. The dark hair with the bangs, you know, like that ordeal. But when he saw that she had short hair, he immediately yelled out, like, what did you do to your hair? So it's kind of unknown if maybe he was stalking her before this happened, because he obviously knew how her hair was before. This lady had actually got her hair cut very recently before her abduction of Ted Bundy actually happened. So she did escape. She got out of, like, she was able to get out of the car. He let her go, and she's just basically said that she really thinks that that haircut saved her life, which is absolutely amazing. And of course she found out later, I guess, you know, when he was arrested, that her assailant was Ted Bundy. Now, when Ted did do his killings, he went to multiple states to do this. And in one state, he actually got arrested for aggravated kidnapping, and that sucker escaped from prison. Yeah, so he escaped, and it's never really said like how much the law was after him, like after that, because he did escape. It really wasn't even acted like it was that huge of a thing that he had escaped. But at that point, when he did escape prison, he was just kind of on his last straw and just like, I'm gonna kill whoever, wherever, you know, I want. Like, he wasn't as picky. So he got up in his car and went down to Florida. Now, he killed a lot of women there, and actually his very last victim that he killed was a 14-year-old girl. And even in his very last interview, when questioned about that, you could tell in his face, and even the people said that they genuinely thought that he felt somewhat of a remorse about that one. And I'm guessing, and it was guessed by them too, that it was because she was so young. But it was never really said. But anyway, that was his last victim, and he was in Florida. So he actually got arrested for the final time in Pensacola, Florida. So that was before his final capture in Florida in 1978. Now this was in Pensacola, Florida, which I found to be so crazy because I go near Pensacola like literally 30 minutes away from there or less, like almost every year. So I was like, dang, like that's really close to where I go. But that's besides the point. So he was recaptured there and of course admitted to the murders, and they knew that they had a crazy serial killer in their hands. So when it came time for the trial of Ted Bundy, I don't know what got into his head, but he thought that it would be the right thing to do to be his own lawyer. He thought that in trial he could get up and make a case for himself and ask witnesses things on the stand, and that basically he was going to get himself out of, whether it was prison in general or the death penalty, anything like that. He just thought that he could get out of it. Now, in multiple videos and documentaries that I've seen, you can see him walking around and acting like he thought he was the bee's knees. He apparently had definitely watched different like crime shows where they go to court and learned how to so-called present yourself, but the only person that, you know, that he just wasn't fooling anybody. He thought that the jury would see him as more of a human that way, whereas actually it made the jury and everyone else just believe that he did all of this even more, because he literally acted just pretty insane, and they could tell that he was just boastful, and in his little escapade of being his own attorney was just, it was not happening. So finally the jury did say that Ted Bundy was in fact guilty, and he was sentenced to death. So he did spend 10 years on death row, and in those 10 years he had started to work with a pastor and his wife. They would come and like just talk to him and like and do things like that with him just through his time in jail. They would get to know him and work with him, and actually on the night before his execution they did communion together. And this pastor just, he noted that Ted himself like gave out the stale piece of bread, and it was a flat soda for the communion food, and that he actually gave communion himself, and he said that it was one of the most powerful communion services that he had ever been to. And honestly, I'm pretty jealous of that. If my goal and literal dream job would be someone who could interview and work with and get behind the mind of serial killers, that is my ultimate dream job. And I would have loved to, you know, talk to Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, all of those, or just I would love to even speak with their family. It's something that's so interesting to me, and I feel like so much research could be done and, you know, maybe beneficial things. But anyway, this pastor did work with Ted, and so many people wanted to interview him before his execution, and Ted only agreed on letting one man come in and have a final interview. And now this is literally the day before his execution in Florida. And the pastor that had been working with Ted recommended this one guy who thought that he wouldn't try to make it into some kind of scam, but that he would actually let Ted tell his whole entire story and why he believed that he did what he did. Now, they chose this man. He came in. There was like mobs outside. It was such a big deal for everyone. He had a crowd outside just waiting. So basically the man came in and they did the interview, and it's a very, very long interview all about the things that Ted said made him do what he did, and just detail about the things that he did do. Now in this interview he did blame it on what I said at first, those magazines that he would find, and he said that it literally became such an addiction and obsession that it just grew and grew and grew, and that's what he blamed it on. And it was in that interview that he said what he said about his parents being like the perfect parents and all that kind of stuff, but obviously we learned that that was not true. But, you know, he did say a whole lot of different things and gave a whole lot of information, and so the very next day he was executed. Now, I don't like going into that stuff as much just because, like, I just don't like talking about, you know, I don't know, stuff like that just kind of bothers me, so I won't get into too much detail on the actual execution. But it was the very last, what people say, in the electric chair. So it was at a Florida prison, and there were literally crowds waiting for this. They had picket signs literally waiting outside the jail, and there were even different people who reported that The restaurants and businesses around town were so freaking excited that even McDonald's put up a sign that said free fries when Bundy fries. So they either said it said when Bundy fries or Bundy dies, but it was like a promotion to get to go to McDonald's, and I was like, oh my gosh. But anyway, that happened, and you can see the crowds cheering as he is, you know, brought away in the hearse after the execution. And one thing, finishing off on the whole entire story, is that after he was executed and they got his ashes, they spread his ashes all over Florida, like dropping them out from a plane all over Florida. Many people were outraged by this and confused by this, and they're like, why did they not just flush his, you know, ashes down a toilet? Like, they're like, why did they spread his ashes around his killing grounds? So a lot of people were confused about that. We don't really know why they did that, but they did, and so yeah. Now, one really cool thing to note aside from the story is that his famous VW bug is actually at a museum in my state, really close to me, and I did not know this until recently, and I about had a hissy fit. His bug was actually in Washington, D.C., but then got moved to a museum. It's called the Alcatraz East Museum in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, which I am in Tennessee and I'm close. So I'm going to go there, and I would really love to get pictures and maybe vlog or just something there and maybe post it. But his actual freaking car is there, and I want to see it so bad. There's also some other things from serial killers that I will talk about soon, so super excited about that. But other than that, that is the end of this video, and I really hope that you did enjoy it. I will put the pictures of the victims, some of them that I could find, and the 2 women that I did talk about that actually escaped him up on the screen so that you guys can get a good look. But other than that, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up and make sure to subscribe to my channel for more of these videos. Let me know down below what you would like to see, and make sure to subscribe, which you can do by hitting my face right up here, and then you can watch another one of my videos by clicking right over here, and it would mean the world to me if you would do that. And I hope you have a great day or night or whenever you may be watching this, and I will see you guys in my next video.